What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We are doing a BMW tier list, classic BMWs, each chassis. We are at TC Europeans, Tyler and Carson, these very knowledgeable BMW experts. We made sure, yes, and we have Marley, our shop dog.
He's actually the most knowledgeable one.
Yeah, he's the most knowledgeable here. We made sure to not discuss this before today, so we were going to duke it out on camera live and fight for which BMWs we think are the best and deserve the spots on the tier list. Will your BMW rank high or will be relegated to F tier? Alright, our classic BMW tier list. To preface this off, we have not driven all of the cars on this tier list, but we've all kind of driven a good mix of them. So we think a lot of our knowledge on these BMWs is going to sort of fill in the gaps for each other. We're going to be basing this on a few things. Notably, value is an important one. Is it a good value? Do the cars last? Like, are they okay to own? Are they not just like terrible piles of garbage, which we will discuss later in the video? And generally, is it just a nice car? Like, is it just a cool car? Is it likable? You know, was it important? That sort of thing. So, you guys excited?
Yes.
Let's do this.
Yes. So we have cars from mostly 1980 to like 2000, give or take a few years. We feel like this encompasses most of the important BMWs. Once you get newer, it's harder to compare to the old stuff. And once you get like really too pre-1980, it's just a lot of cars that nobody really knows about. So I think most of you will recognize basically all of the cars on this list. We are also going to be using the top model of each chassis to sort of gauge the most of how we're scoring them. Now, obviously, there are going to be some things that are universal between the chassis, but say if you have a BMW E46, we're going to take the M3 and sort of use that as the comparison for everything. So, right, let's get into it. Our first one, we have the E46 Ti. F tier. There's no discussion. That is
It's just like, it's basically a worse, cheaper version of the E46.
And it's really ugly.
And it's just hideous.
Yeah,
like, it has those
hideous.
like bug eye headlights. Like, they decided that they were gonna do, like, they're like, oh yeah, let's just like change the front end to make it like 10 times worse. Like,
Yeah.
I think on the E36 Ti, they maintained like the front end of the E36, and so like it, you know, it looks pretty good.
It's like a shorter version of the same car.
On the E46 Ti, they just slaughtered my boy. I don't
They're
really
like,
know.
how can we take an E46 and make it look really bad?
Yeah.
And then try and sell it?
Instant F tier. There's
Instant
no further discussion needed on that one. Now, we have the BMW M1. How do we feel about this car? It was the first motorsport car that was ever produced.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
it's S tier.
Yeah, I feel like we're in agreement with that too. S tier. It was the first one.
I think that it is S tier for a couple reasons. One, it's got like a really unique story of how it was made. It was the very first M car, so like historically speaking, very significant. It was designed by a legendary designer, Giuseppe
Giuseppe Giugiaro.
Giuseppe Giugiaro, some Italian guy that did Lamborghini stuff.
That's some Italian guy.
Some
he did
Italian
a lot of
guy.
really cool stuff.
One of the most legendary car
Yeah,
designers.
some
of
Italian
all
guy.
time.
He was very good at what he did.
He was very passionate.
He's very passionate, yes.
Also designed the car. It had one of the greatest power plants of any BMW, the M88 engine, M88-2. But
yeah, beautiful inline six. Basically started being in motorsport. They weren't able to race the car in the initial class that they were supposed to race it in. So then they made an entire class. They called it a pro car, and it did wonderful things. They basically just took factory teams and private teams, put them up against each other, and yeah, it was cool. So BMW M1 S tier. So we have our standard for the list. We have our S tier and our F tier to start it off. Right off the bat, so we know the parameters we're working between. Now, this will be an interesting one. We have the BMW 2002 Ti.
Well, you mean the turbo?
Is it the turbo?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
That
you
would-
can tell this is where my knowledge but my knowledge get better as we get into the later ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's turbo. Yeah, so 2002 turbo, my bad. I think this was probably not the first turbocharged car, but like one of the first like road-going turbocharged cars that actually sold in more than just like numbers that were single digit.
It might be the first production turbocharged car.
It's definitely BMW's first production
Yeah.
turbocharged
Yeah, it was
car.
BMW's first turbocharged car.
I am pretty sure, I don't know my Porsche history that well, but that Porsche definitely beat them to the turbo on a car. I could be wrong about that.
They're right in the same era.
But yeah, it's needless to say, an early turbocharged car. It drives like it. It's like
lots of lag, I imagine.
super laggy.
Yeah.
The front of it's really cool because they like designed the livery to be backwards so that when you were looking at it in a rear view mirror, it would read straight,
turbo.
which is super funny to me
that's
because
so based.
normally it'd be like, it's behind you. Like, why is it behind the guy?
Right. It should be in front.
It should be in
Yeah,
front.
right.
Well,
But-
it's behind you waiting for the boost to build.
Yeah, waiting for the
Yeah,
boost
right.
to build. So I would rate the 2002 chassis as a whole to be either A or B.
Yeah.
The power plant in the turbo was arguably not excellent. Like, it was very hard to drive.
That would honestly be me personally. If I were sort of scoring this, I would be inclined to put it in B because, as great of a car as it was and as important as it was, the driving experience isn't like a modern car. Like, as you start to get into the 90s, 2000s, those were also important cars, but they still drive a lot like a modern car.
But like
The BMW 2002 started. It's like it starts
So
the
why?
ethos of what a BMW drives like.
It, like,
2002 set the precedent of like
Yeah.
this is how a luxury sport coupe drives, and that's what they've carried through their entire
I agree. For me, A
tier for
A
me
tier.
as well.
Okay.
And in terms of like we talked about ownership experience and all that stuff,
They're probably
it's
pretty easy to live with.
very old school. Like,
That could
if
be a
the
good
carbureted
program.
ones, you can maintain the entire fueling system with a screwdriver if you know what you're doing.
Right. All right. We'll put it in an A tier.
A tier.
A tier.
I will concede.
Absolutely.
I will concede A tier for now, and it's my fault for not knowing enough more about 2002s.
Yeah.
But they're cool cars. I don't
Really-
Yeah.
We didn't have one for him to drive, otherwise he definitely would have put it in A tier.
E28 M5. I will go first.
Do it. Do it.
So the E28 M5, I think, is becoming kind of a bargain in the BMW M car world. You can get an E28 M5, like a good one, for $40,000. And I think as far as BMW M cars go, that is an awesome deal because they only made like a few thousand of them for the world. In comparison to E30 M3, which they made 18,000 of. And I think the dollar to car is really good. Obviously, you can only get black.
Yep.
And interiors, was there tan? Was there even black, or were they all black?
I think.
I think there's usually black option. for most
Yeah,
of them.
I think they
Okay.
had a couple. I've even seen some. I don't know if they've been redone, but I've seen some in red
Okay.
interior. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all black.
Yeah.
I've never seen one
Yeah.
that's not black.
Yeah.
There's probably like one out there that's not black. And
It's like in the museum in the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In the
Yeah.
base museum. Yeah. So, but I think for 30 to 40 grand, it's pretty solid. This is the S38. I think most of them are S38s, which is the later version of the M88 and the M1.
Yeah.
As a whole driving experience, I just drove a 535i, which it was a nice car, but it does kind of feel its age in some ways. What do you guys think?
So yeah, I'm kind of piggybacking off that. I think the value is there. There's another car I think that's a better value that we'll get to later,
Yeah.
but it's still a very good value. It's E28s are kind of like a little bit nicer riding, more luxurious E30s, which I think it is really nice. Ride quality, and it's a little bigger. It's really easy to reach everything in the front.
Agreed. Yep.
I'd probably put it personally in B.
Yeah. What do you think, Carson?
Yeah, I mean, the S38 is just an M88 with a couple revisions, so it has like
Yeah.
that really, really awesome motorsport engine.
Right. It was hand built.
Yeah, hand built. Very incredible engine technology, even from that era. They are such a deal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can, both of you said, like you can go out and get an incredible example for 40 grand. It's
Yeah.
like that's hard to do with a lot of the newer stuff.
Yeah, for how
Yeah.
rare it is and how special.
And how special it is.
The Paul Roche engines, which the S38 is one of them, just sound next level.
They're awesome.
They're excellent.
They're incredible.
They sound
Factory
so
ITBs.
good, so smooth.
Like,
Yeah.
just because it drives a little bit more like an older car, but they're trying to bring it up, I think for me it's B.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd also go B. And something else I do want to say with this list, I'm going to put this in B tier, but if the car is further left on a certain tier, that means we deem it higher on that tier. So if we have a B tier, say we stick another car now to the left of the E28 M5 B tier, we're saying it is, we think it's better than the E28 M5, or vice versa. If it's on the right, we think it's not as good. But I think solid B tier for the E28. Like, it's a solid car.
Solid car,
M car.
great
good
value.
deal.
You're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, you won't be
driving an E28 M5.
Right, no, they're nice cars. A lot of people like them. Now, the E30 M3. I have some interesting things to say about this, but I want you guys to go first.
Yeah, I have a very interesting take on E30 M3s. The chassis is wonderful. Yeah. I've driven one of these. The chassis is wonderful.
Even regular E30s, like the chassis is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a nice...
Yep.
Yeah.
It's raw, it's loud, and it's got an iconic look to the car, without a doubt. I don't like the engine. I think that the S14...
Bad take.
Unfortunately, really lets this car down to me.
He doesn't like 4 cylinders.
Yeah, to me, like the S14 in the regular configuration that it came with on the car, it sounds like a Honda. And to me, like the glorious BMW inline 6 sound is missing from that car. The E30 M3 is still an S to me, though.
Oh,
It's still
surprising.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Mm.
I definitely, body style, gorgeous. Talk about what an 80s car is.
Yeah.
The E30 M3 embodies
Right.
all of it. I personally love the S14 because it's just an S38 minus 2 cylinders.
Yeah.
So you still have this incredible engine. It is the engine that they raced with, so they could, these are like homologation stuff. Sport Evo models are even more spicy, get you up in that horsepower range. Like, what they bring it up to almost 300,
Almost 300
at
horsepower.
the end of the Evo 2.
From a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder.
4-cylinder, yeah, 2.3 liter.
Right, yeah.
Without a doubt, impressive.
Incredible. But yeah, S tier all day.
So you're both S tier. I actually have a bit of a different take.
Uh-oh.
I think it's a great car. 80s box flares, like classic, it was the first M3, is very important. But I think the driving experience overall of an E30 is good, but it's not S tier to me. And I think the value further also super kills it. Even like the M3 is a terrible value. Even a regular 325i is still not a great value. You're paying 20 to 30 grand for like a nice 325i, which is 170 horsepower, dinosaur, like 12 valve M20. The M20 was a great engine in its day, but they're just not up to par with the cars that came after it, in my opinion, which we'll talk about later. Honestly, I would even stick the E30 M3 and B tier with the E28 M5.
Blasphemy.
It sucks to be wrong like that.
It's
but
okay to be wrong.
Like, I think it's fantastic.
Oh
If it
my
was the same
gosh.
price, if it was
Here's-
40 grand, I would put it in S tier.
Here's the problem.
I think $100,000 is just diabolical. Even like driver quality ones are still 60 or 70. It's like just for that money, it's just
Here's the problem.
yeah.
If you take any regular person and you put this car in a lineup and you ask them what's the best looking car, they will pick this car every time. The iconic BMW.
Yep.
They still use it on their marketing almost every single week. The other thing is the rest of the cars in the range are a lot cheaper.
Yeah, but they're still not a great value. Like, well, a nice 325i is still 20 grand.
Explain to me how you don't think a 6-cylinder 325i is a good deal.
For 20 grand, you can buy like a solid E36, E46 M3, or an E39 M5.
Yeah, but they are not the same. I would allow A tier.
But it has to be all the way to the left.
Yeah.
Alright.
I would put, and I agree, I would
We'll
put
stick it
an
in A tier.
E30 M3 over a 2002 turbo. For
All
me.
right.
Oh yeah. E30 M3 way
We'll
over
stick
2000.
the E30 M3
Yeah.
in A tier. I don't think it's a bad car. I should say E30 in general. I think it's a great car. I just think it has certain flaws and doesn't deserve S tier.
Right.
But if it were totally up to me,
You're going to love my E36 M3 take. Let's just say that.
yeah. We have a really interesting one. We have the E32 750 IL. Now, I know a lot about these. Well, enough.
More than I do.
Yeah, more than we
Yeah.
do probably.
So
Yeah.
this was the second generation BMW 7 Series. It was the first ever sedan, like mass-produced luxury sedan, to have V12 in it. They beat Mercedes, and this car actually sent Mercedes back to the drawing board. And Mercedes was like, oh crap, they have something we don't, and it stole S-Class sales. It was like one of the first cars to do that. So it's pretty big, and it's time for doing that. Now, it is two M20 inline 6s slapped together to make a V12. Silky smooth V12, great driving experience. But it is kind of expensive to run because two have everything.
It's a very expensive.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive to run. And while I think they look great, it kind of gets outshined by some of the later cars.
Agreed. Absolutely.
I think it's.
I also
still,
think it's slow. I mean,
well, it's a 4-speed automatic. They're all slow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
also
like
really
the
slow.
M70 doesn't put out much power at
The
all.
M70 is a dog.
No, it puts 300 horsepower out,
Yeah.
and it has like 320 something pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
great 60 to 120 car, not a great 0 to 60 car.
Yeah.
I'd be inclined to probably put it in high C or low B.
In my opinion, it would be a C tier.
It's a C.
It's a C
All
tier
right,
yeah.
thing.
All right,
The
C
things
tier.
like 7 Series always lose their value. The aftermarket support's just not there. They break because they have so much new technology.
Yeah, they're
on
hard to
them.
live with.
It's really difficult to live with. We just had a guy in that had a rough go with an E23 and
I think it's C. I think it's a C.
All right, we'll stick it in C.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty fair.
I think it's cool. It's got a V12. It's long. It's big boy. It's comfy.
Back in its day, it was a great car. It was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
But now in modern day, there's
they just
other.
don't stand up.
Yeah, it doesn't really hold up as well, and they're kind of hard to live with.
Absolutely.
Okay, BMW Z1. You guys want to take this off first? Who wants to take this?
Z1s.
The
I really
Z1.
like these. We met a guy who owns one at a show that's like kind of a modified one, which is super
That's actually really
unusual.
cool. Yeah.
Super unusual. It's largely it shares a lot of components with an E30 and
Majority.
yeah, it's an M20 powered car.
Of the running gear, I'll say.
Yeah.
Majority of the running gear.
Yeah,
Obviously, all
like-
the body, all the
electronics,
exterior,
all-
everything
yeah.
is different.
It's very experimental. I think they're probably pretty hard to own. Consensus of all I was saying.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately C.
I was thinking the same thing. Honestly, we were on the same wavelength. I like C tier. It's cool, but
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like kitschy cool though, where it's like, oh, like I pushed a button and my doors go down halfway.
it has one gimmick.
You know, and it's kind of like, all right, well, but
Yeah.
like, do you have a cool engine? It's like, no, it's
No.
an M20. It's
You're
like
paying 60. You're paying triple the price for an E30
for
325i.
E30, right?
But for that money, you get doors that go down and body panels that you can swap out if you want to change the color, which to me isn't enough to justify.
Which
Yeah.
no one's ever gonna do because they're so expensive.
They're so
if you
hard.
break one on accident,
Yeah.
The E34 M5. I just drove an E34 540i today, which is awesome. I'll take this off. I'm actually really excited about this car.
Yep.
So E34 M5, basically the E28 but on steroids. We're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the 3.8 liter version with a 6-speed manual transmission, which is 0 only. The US did get the earlier 3.6 liter version with the 5-speed manual, which power to weight on that one was actually about the same as the E28. But the later version, it started to kind of get some more power. It was like 340 horsepower. And it was one of the first BMWs, actually one of the first production cars to have a 6-speed manual transmission as opposed to a 5-speed, which is really cool. I think the E34 M5 is kind of an underdog. These are really good value. Like the nicest, most expensive ones are the wagons, which are super low production, and those are like 60 grand.
yeah.
So for like 60 grand and change, you can have the nicest version of one in like a weird color that they ever made. But even less, like 20 grand buys you like a good one. 30 buys you a really nice one. And you can find a crappy one for like 10, but you won't want that one. It'll need an engine, which will be 10 grand.
And
At the
also
very
the
least.
engine in this car is worth almost as much as the car.
Yeah, the S38s are really valuable, like the M88.
M88.
Yeah.
Last hand-built M car. I would be inclined to put this in higher B tier, above the E28, or low A tier, on the account of value mostly, and the E34 is also a great driving experience.
I think that the E34 chassis, I haven't driven the M5's versions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me either.
But I would put the E34 chassis above the E28 chassis for myself. For my
I agree.
Oh, I definitely agree. I mean, and they had like 7 years more development on.
Yeah, it's a newer car. It still has a lot of the classic things we like about older BMWs. It still had the last BMW, the separated headlight design, all that stuff. But it kind of just took the E28 and just improved the driving experience in a lot of ways. And it really, honestly, the difference between E28 and E34 comes down to which one you like more as far as looks.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
these
the
are
same
cheaper.
power plants,
I think,
Yeah,
that's actually interesting too. There's 2 generations of cars that essentially have the same engine.
Same engine.
same power to weight, basically, the early ones, or better in the later E34.
Which is, it's always interesting to bring up the fact that like the S38 is based so closely on the M88. And
Yeah.
the M88 was in things that were like from 1971.
Yeah,
and now we're
right.
talking about something in like 94, 95.
Yeah,
like,
right, yeah, and the last models.
Yeah.
So I think where it comes down is if you want something more raw that has an S38 manual, you go for the E28.
E28,
If you want something more refined with an S38 manual, you go with the E34. for me, I'm going with
Also
the E34.
throw in the E24 in there.
E34, E28. I'm actually, now we're talking about, I think B tier, but above the E28.
For me,
for the
I
E34.
agree.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's
alright,
where
we'll
it needs to
stick
be.
there.
And just the wagon, I think, is really what sells
The wagon's
me on
also
all
cool.
that,
Yeah, they
you
made
know?
a wagon. It was
Yeah.
the first M5
First
wagon.
M5
full-on
wagon.
sport wagon. Like,
And they made a convertible special edition, which is at the BMW Museum, which
Yep.
was probably terrible, but it was so cool.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't need to say anything more
Yeah.
on that. Okay, E31 850 CSI.
gorgeous cars.
Yeah.
Beautiful car.
Gorgeous.
No B-pillars.
Spaceships.
Yeah, we'll let Carson take it off. He wants to
Right.
talk about this car.
Dude, spaceships. They're awesome.
The car that looks like a C4 Corvette from 30 feet away.
Stop it.
Continue. It's a beautiful car. I'm just giving crap.
It's so
Yeah,
gorgeous.
continue.
We actually had one in the shop, an 850. It's had the nicest paint of almost any car that we've ever had in here. Just gorgeous, well loved. One thing where I think it fell short is they really tried to push it toward a grand touring aspect. So the engine is really quiet. You can't hear it. They're almost all automatics. They're really comfortable, but you're kind of like, you get in and you're kind of like, okay. The outside of the car is really what sells the experience.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. I do think the 850 CSI, like the idea of a 6-speed manual V12, you row the
Row your
gears in a V12 and rev match, which is like exotic car territory. Like the only other place you get that is Lamborghini or Ferrari, basically.
Yeah.
Basically.
So I think there's that novelty to it, but it is a weird car. They're getting older. Any of the specific trim pieces, you're
Yep.
Parts
So that's the
are
other thing.
astronomically expensive because
Really
they
hard.
sold very, very poorly.
Parts expensive to maintain.
even kind of expensive to buy into too.
Very-
Like the
it's-
CSIs
if
are
you-
expensive.
Yeah, if you're
but-
talking CSIs, man, you're not spending under $100,000.
Yeah, you can buy them for like 80, 90, but those are like okay example. Yeah, 100 grand is like what
Yeah,
you're paying.
it's what you're paying.
And then even the regular ones, like an 850 is still like 20 to 30 grand for like an automatic.
Yeah,
You know, you can find the manual ones, but it's still probably gonna be like 50 grand, 60. Like
yeah.
the dollar to car is not quite there.
The experience is looking at the car.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
driving it. Like you need like an exhaust to
Like-
make you know that you're driving
Yeah,
something that's like got
right.
a V12 in it. It's
Yeah.
so quiet.
And nobody makes an exhaust because
Nobody
there's
makes
only like 5 of them
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, yeah.
And nobody's driving them
Yeah.
because they want to look at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It was such a great concept, and I really, really wish they went through with the M8 because that
Yeah.
would have been something that, you know, if we were talking about an M8 right now,
Yeah.
it would be a whole different
Right.
conversation.
And they made one. They made one concept M8.
Yeah.
And the big issue that like prevented them from greenlighting it was basically the cost.
Cost.
It was just too
Yeah.
high. It was completely
Astronomical.
uncompetitive.
It would have just alienated any buyer that could have.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was
Looked
too
at it.
expensive in its day. Even now, the value's not quite there, and it was just a hard sell. The driving experience did not match the looks of the car.
Exactly.
like Carson said.
Yep.
Exactly.
Looking at it is the experience of the car.
But Michael Jordan did own one.
He did own one.
So
That
yep.
does give it a little bit of cool points.
All right, what do you guys think? Tier.
I would say high C, low B.
That's
Yep.
kind of what I was
I
thinking
think it's
too.
top of the C's.
Yeah, top
All right,
of
we'll
the
put it
Cs.
top of the C's. It's a very cool car. I almost hate putting it there because I think the CSI driving experience is probably awesome.
Yeah,
but
it's still great.
It's
Yeah.
still, we
But-
can't justify putting it higher. We have the BMW E36 M3. We have all owned, I think, more than one.
More than
More
one.
than one.
Yeah, we've all owned more than one.
More
We've
than
daily
one.
driven them. I put like collectively probably 50,000 miles in these cars.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's important to note before I really tear into this.
Yeah,
car.
I
Yeah.
think I have a feeling they're going to tear it apart. I'm going to be devil's advocate.
One,
All right, take it away. I'll
there
let
was a
them go
lot
first.
of them.
Yep, there were a lot
A
of them.
lot.
A lot of them.
Which is good if you're trying to buy one.
They made
Right.
70,000 worldwide, about 35,000 US, 35,000 Euro ones.
So there was a lot of them.
Over a million total E36s worldwide.
Yep. A lot of them came to the U.S.
Yep.
They also, because of there were so many of them, they have stayed in a good price range that is very intro level to M cars
Very
Agreed.
approachable.
as a whole.
Yeah.
And there's so many different versions of the car that you have a wide spectrum of like your old man gray 4-door
Yeah.
at Sunny all the way up to like the M3 GTR. The
driving
rest of
experience,
the
yeah.
car
The rest of it?
kind of just isn't that good. The
Okay.
interiors
They fall
just
apart.
fall apart.
They're very fragile. That's true.
In terms of like,
Even in their day, they were not great.
yeah,
Yeah.
If you're restoring one of these, you're never going to get your money's worth out of them.
No.
Unless it's one of the really special ones.
Yeah, it has to be a really special one, Euro spec, something like that.
Yep. The parts are still pretty expensive, and like if you have an M chassis, like the M tax is still very much alive.
M tax is always real.
Yeah.
Always real.
And I can actually tell you with pretty much certainty, if you are piecing together all the parts to restore an E36 M3, say you buy one on Facebook, it's 10 grand. It's just like clean bodied, like the paint's okay, but like you can correct it out, right? No crazy rust or peeling paint, right? If you just mechanically restore the car, you're going to spend on top of the car about, give or take, $15,000 of parts.
Yep.
Yeah, that's everything. Now, relative to cars, it's actually not that terrible, but relative to the cost of these, you'll spend that $15,000 on top of the 10 you paid, and you're going to have a $15,000 car.
Right.
So you'll be out $10,000.
You'll be out 10 grand. Well, and the testament to how good and adaptable a chassis from an E36 is that there's parts to make them grip and rip and do time attack stuff, and there's parts to make them drift. And like you can push the chassis to either direction, and a lot of people do. We've had guys in here that were like, I want to drift my 4-door 328, and I need subframe reinforcements, and like made it happen.
Yeah, and like my car, I built it out to kind of like really emphasize for me, the E36 chassis is the best when it is turned into a track-focused car. It's light. It has so many mods. You don't have to worry about purity that much because there's so many of them that like you get to do all that fun stuff. Where I think the E36 falls short is in a stock car. It's just underwhelming, and compared to what else is available, not that special.
Well, it's a bridge because it really is. You know,
it is a bridge.
It's changing. It's like introduced the new design, the body style.
It's the first car's Vanos, first enclosed headlight.
Yeah.
First,
also, the power plants are really reliable.
Very.
Yeah, it's actually like one of the best engines BMW ever made was like the M5X series engines.
And super torquey. Like these engines, like you know immediately, and you can really tell the difference. Like because you can M50, M5X swap E30s. Like the difference in the way that car drives with the M20 versus the 6-cylinder is huge. Like you're like, whoa, this is like way torqueier.
The torque is there, and that's what you're riding around town is just torque wave.
Yeah, and I would say consensus, because I've driven a lot of these cars, I think the biggest advantage of the E36, even in stock form, is that it's fun to drive even around town. Because it's a milk car, it's not as insulated as the later BMWs, so you still kind of feel a lot what's happening, even when you're just driving around mundanely. Whereas the E46 and the later BMWs sort of lost some of that, and the earlier ones sort of they're more compromising. So I think that's a pro of the car. I would say, though, as an overall car, though, probably B tier. Like, it was good. It was good for its time. It did a lot of things right. But there were better cars before it and after it at certain things. It just kind of does everything okay.
It does everything okay.
That's what we like about it.
Yeah. I think it's bottom of the B tier.
I would say for me it's mid B tier.
I was gonna put it mid B tier too. Yeah. I actually think I'd put it below the. I don't know. Here's my one thing with putting it below the E34 is the suspension design in E36 is superior to the E34. It was the first car that used that, what do they call it, like the Z-arm in the rear? It's different from the E30, and that was the first car that used that, and it basically all the modern BMWs and how the suspension works sort of originated from the E36, and the E36 is much more forgiving at the limit, and it handles a lot better than the E30 does, which is why, and the E34, and any of the cars came before it, which makes sense, it's a more modern car, but...
I think I'd be down to bump it to top of B, I think because of just the wide range, the aftermarket, the value.
Yeah, like it's a better value than the E34. They're easier to live with.
Mentioned the Euro S50 M3s.
We've even gotten there. We're just talking about the chassis. That's how much there is to talk about this car.
They're a whole different animal. I mean, like...
Yeah, individual throttle bodies. It was the first car with dual Vanos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I think also adds to the importance of it. I think high B tier is where the car belongs.
Yeah, I think I can get behind that.
I brought this up earlier. I think the E36 M3 specifically defined what it meant for an M car to be an M car going forward.
Yes.
Because unlike the E34, E20, E30, M34, those cars had a lot of compromises. But for a normal consumer, they're buying their what is in today's money, $70,000, $80,000 car. They don't want to deal with that harshness in a car. The E36, it was refined in a lot of ways and unrefined in other ways, where the car was more playful. And it was sort of the fun car that you could also drive every day. And the E36 sort of started that trend that every M car after it took on.
Yeah.
As the Evos.
It definitely, in terms of refinement step from the E30 to that, it's a huge step.
Huge,
Yeah. All right. E38 750 IL. This is like the golden child of 7 Series.
It is. It's the one
I think it's the best 7.
Yeah. The M Sport is, I think, the one I grabbed a photo of, which is also cool. It's M cars.
They had like bulletproof versions of this car, which
Yeah,
is kind of cool.
the armored versions.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about those. Tupac got shot in one.
He
If
did not have the
Tupac had the
bulletproof
He did not have the
bulletproof
bulletproof version.
dude, if Tupac had the bulletproof one,
Yeah, he might have.
imagine where music would be today.
Dude, literally.
Absolutely.
And like it's basically just an improvement of the E32 in like kind of every way. 5-speed automatic in some of them. The V12 is a little smoother, a little more power. There's also this might be a hot take. I think the E38 7 Series, the 750i M Sport, which we didn't get here in the United States because we only got the IL, but I think the 750i M Sport is potentially one of the most beautiful sedans ever produced. Like proportions, the style, like it's perfect.
I think there's one other that we'll talk about later that I think could dethrone.
I think, yeah, but I will say though,
It's a bold claim.
I think like Doug DeMiro said this too, and like I kind of agree with him. I think it's one of, if not definitely at least one of the most beautiful sedans.
Yeah,
ever
one of
produced.
the. Because immediately comes to mind is the Mercedes W500.
Yeah.
It's, it's hard to, it's hard.
Yeah.
I'll say one of the. That's
Yeah.
that's more
Yeah,
correct.
I would go for one of the.
Like top 5% easily.
I think
Yeah.
it's also like instantly recognizable as a classic BMW. Like
It looks like a
it's got-
mob car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mobster. It's like if you think of a 7 Series, you think of this.
It was in a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
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 So
yeah.
for me, I put it above the other 7.
I'm thinking like low B,
Thinking low B.
Low B. Where's the other 7?
mid C.
Mid C.
I'm thinking it's high C.
I think it's high C.
Because it still
Yeah.
has all the same pitfalls that all the other 7s do, where they're expensive to maintain. They have a lot of technology that breaks, but they look cool.
They do look cool. They look
And like
sick.
it's the quintessential 7.
It is the quintessential 7, yeah. Like if you look at any classic 7 Series, like it was the one.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like the perfect one. It wasn't too modern. It wasn't too old.
If
It could pass as a modern car. It also feels like an old car.
Exactly.
if I were to own a 7, I would own one of these.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm in the
I-
same boat.
This
But
is
would
my
I buy a
favorite.
7? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
All right.
If I was
we'll-
forced to buy a 7, it
Yeah.
was-
We'll put it in high C. I think that's an okay spot for it. Okay, now we have a weird one. We have the M Coupe and M Roadster, Z3M,
yeah.
Z3 in general.
M Coupe. Yeah.
This is a weird car. This is like the E36, but it was like half E36, half E30.
Well, half
Half
E36. Yeah, half E46.
It's true. I guess it's everything because
Yeah.
the first one for E36, later was E46. Rear suspension was E30.
Yeah.
The
really
dashboards were kind of E30. Yeah, it was like a hodgepodge of cars. Why does it exist? Nobody knows, but it exists, and they made a coupe version, which is dope.
And they sold a lot of the convertible
Sold a lot.
Z3s.
They did, and I think the convertible Z3M is the best M car value right now on the used market for M cars. You can buy a nice one for $10,000.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
another good
Yeah.
M car you can buy for
And it's
$10,000.
pretty great. Yeah.
We had one in the shop.
Yeah.
He bought it under 20,000 miles. It had 18,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
Up in white. It had the 1.9 in it. Like the drop top. We love that car.
It's
We
just
just
fun.
took it on a little spin. We have a little
Yeah.
circle drive outside
Yeah.
the shop. And like brought it back. And it's like, it's so much fun. You're in a little like 2-seater roadster. So you're getting like
Yeah.
a little British car experience.
A little bit, yeah, exactly.
Like there's so much fun.
It's a gentleman's Miata.
Yeah,
Gentleman's
and,
Miata.
And it shares a lot of parts with the E36,
Yes.
which
Yep.
is really
and,
nice.
And eventually the E46. So
Yeah.
like your
it's both.
support is there.
Yeah.
Parts market wise, you're not going to break the bank if you have to rebuild anything on this car.
Right. The only pitfall I think is the rear suspension being E30. It doesn't. When you're driving around town, it feels more connected than a regular E36. But at the limit, it's not quite as good as the
yeah,
E36.
this is not a track car.
No, this is not a good track
This
car.
is a
It's not a
cruiser.
track
Your
car.
Sunday driver.
Yeah.
You can go tear up some canyon roads, but you're not taking this to the
Yeah,
track.
it's not gonna be faster than anything,
Yeah.
but it's just fun.
So, also, I feel like we should mention the S54 powered Z3M.
Some of
Yes.
it has 54s.
That thing
Yes.
is crazy.
Bonkers.
Really,
Yeah.
really awesome car.
It's like a couple hundred pounds lighter than the E46 M3.
Yeah.
It has the 5-speed, which I think helps that instead of the 6.
yeah, again, I don't think it really holds up at the limit, like you're saying. Like, there's a reason why they didn't race
Right.
Z.
Yeah, no, this was always meant to be a road car.
Look at the Z3M coupe. Just on your phone right now. Look at the Z3M coupe.
Photo on screen. We'll
Put it up. Now look at the Ferrari GT4 Lusso.
He has a very
Copied.
good point.
Copied.
Literally, they copy pasted.
They copied it.
BMW started that, man.
So it has
We should've
Italian
agreed.
passion, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
German car with Italian passion.
And you're gonna pay what, $200,000 less for a really nice one?
I want to say B tier. I'm not. I think it probably low B, because it's a good value, but it's kind of an oddball car, and they're not as classically beautiful as a lot of the other cars. I would think low B. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think it sneaks in beneath the. It's not as, to me, not as good as the E36 M3.
Right, and the values show that too. That's why they're cheaper.
But I agree with you guys. I think low B tier is probably
Low B
where it
is
should
good.
land.
Yeah.
All right, now a really special car, the E39 BMW M5.
Oh,
We've all driven these. I've driven. I drove 0, and then I drove 2 in like a 3-month span, which is awesome.
yeah.
I got to drive a Denon S2.
He says Dina instead of Dynan.
It's Dynan.
Dynan.
We say it wrong, and we're sorry. Don't hate on us.
Dynan.
Again, any complaints, spam/customer service at tcheuro.com.
Yeah, Mr. Dynan's gonna have some words for you.
Dynan. Drove a Dynan S2, one of these. It was an individual car. It was in great condition.
Gorgeous.
It's got to be one of my favorite cars I've ever driven.
I mean, just the sound they make from
Yep.
the S62.
It's
So intoxicating. Rowing your own through it. The chassis, right? This car came in on what, 99, 98?
Yep.
Yeah, well, the E39, yeah, like 97 actually.
97 for
Yep.
the E39.
Yep.
It is still a benchmark for what modern cars should handle like. Lucid, if you guys know what Lucid is with their electric cars and all of that, they benchmarked against an E39 M5 for the way they wanted their chassis to handle. And those cars came out, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah,
It is such a good car.
agreed.
Yep. It's not a race car.
No. It's a luxury sedan.
It's a luxury sedan. It's got torque. It's got enough power to be quick. It can send it on the Autobahn effortlessly.
All day long.
It looks fantastic.
Gorgeous. It looks like a new car. It'll
Up
hold
there with the
today.
E38 in looks. Like, it is one of the most beautiful sedans
It's
ever made.
gorgeous.
The proportions are perfect.
Yep. For me, S tier.
S tier all day long.
Yeah,
S tier.
I'm also S tier for the reasons they said. Like, the driving experience doesn't do anything great. Kind of like the E36. It just does everything like you'd want it to. As a car enthusiast driving it, you're just like, this car makes sense. I like how the shift feels. I like the controls. It's refined enough. This is V8. It sounds great, naturally aspirated.
Yep.
The value is still there. Like 30
Yeah.
grand buys you a very good one.
Very nice one.
And
Yep.
they are a little more expensive to run than a 6-cylinder BMW, but it's still not terrible. And for the caliber of car, I think S tier.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
S tier.
Obviously below the M1.
If I can
'cause-
qualify your statement, I think it doesn't do anything exceptional, but does a lot really well.
Yeah, exactly. It does a lot really well. Yeah. So okay, E395 S
S
tier.
tier. But
Yeah.
definitely S tier.
Definitely S tier.
Definitely S tier.
Yeah. E46 M3. We have a CSL on here, but obviously the E46 M3 and E46 was like a lot of cars. This was like, if the E36 was kind of like the first modern BMW that like a lot of people knew, this was like the everybody 3 Series. Even today, this is still like,
Yep.
everybody knows this car.
I think they made the E46, correct me if I'm wrong, until like 2015
Yeah.
in Brazil.
Yeah. They made like a new E46 in Brazil up until like 2015.
Until like 2015.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and we do have to exclude TI because that's its own thing.
Yeah, TI was first.
Technically different
You already know
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah, TI's gone. We're excluding the TI
sucks.
because we hate that car.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
And it's because this car is better than it, and
Yeah. All right.
still, and it still covers a wide range of prices and quality. Like
Yeah. Yeah, you can
wagon version, coupe version,
All-wheel drive.
4-door version,
Yeah.
all-wheel
All-wheel
drive,
drive.
version,
Yeah.
rear-wheel drive version.
Now, obviously, these aren't all M3s,
Yeah.
but the E46 came in almost every flavor of car you could ever want.
So we had a 6-speed. It was which black? It was
Carbon black.
Carbon black. Easily the most beautiful car we've ever had here. Just
Gorgeous.
in terms of like the color. Everyone would come in and they'd be like,
Yeah,
"Whoa,
that's the
M3,
car.
right?
Like as I've been
M3,
as I was
yep.
working, even like the mail lady would come in and say, "That's a gorgeous car." Like everyone that walked
It's
in.
got
Everyone
the
loves these
proportions.
cars.
It's got the look. The 6-speed is great. The SMG is
S54.
horrible.
Do not.
With the CSL tune, I will link a video up here. With the CSL tune, the
It's
SMG
acceptable.
It's acceptable, and I actually do kind of like it. It has a little bit of like that single clutch character. It's not as good as DCT, and driving around town is mid.
And it's definitely not as good as a manual.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
It's like imagine you're driving and then you have your buddy shift for you.
It's like having a passenger shifting the car for you.
Like you have 3 pedals, but someone else is shifting.
Has to do the shift.
It's like, okay. Whatever.
Yeah, the car's like telephone with itself.
Exactly.
Gears.
Yeah, which sounds horrible, and it is.
It's pretty bad.
So...
All right, but anyway, ignoring the SMG.
But
Yep.
there is good value in those. You can also turn SMGs into manuals
Very easily.
But the problem is that
for quite a price,
it basically costs what it would take to just get
the difference to
manual.
buy a manual.
But the difference is you now have new parts, and the SMG transmissions are also generally in better condition than manuals because they cannot misshift.
Right.
And
So I think like in the future, that's probably going to be a thing, like a big thing.
if you look at the market now, 6-speed manual converted SMG cars and manual cars don't have any value difference.
They're
So
pretty much the same.
Most people understand that this is an easy swap to do, and it doesn't really hurt the value. So I think that's actually a big benefit of the SMG. Is if you look at it on a percentage basis, once you get to some of the really nice examples, it actually becomes a better bargain to buy an SMG and manual swap. Talk about the E46 as a whole. They're kind of a little more expensive around the E36, but not too much.
Okay,
so.
yeah. I was going to say, that's the thing that detracts E46 to me.
Yeah.
Is it gained the famous BMW quality of being insanely expensive to own. Rod bearings on the S54, just count on it.
Need it.
Vanos, count on it. If it hasn't been done, just budget that in.
Do it.
This is on the M3 specifically.
On the M3 specifically.
The subframe reinforcements.
The subframes
is a bigger issue on the E46.
Tear themselves out because of the way that they did the suspension mounting, the way that they welded it in, and the way that the torque is transferred through the diff. If they would have swapped the assembly processes to the other side, it would have been fine.
But yeah, I think those are kind of big detractors. Because those things are not like, oh, it's a couple $100.
Yeah.
That's $10,000.
But here's my
$10,000.
This is my like kind of counter argument to that is that if you're buying one for $20,000, it's all been done. That is baked into the $20,000 price.
Sometimes.
Well, that's the thing. If it has been done,
or you'll get an oil analysis with someone that hasn't done rod bearings.
No, but at the $20,000 one, if you find the right one, it's gonna have service records that shows it's been done. And if you buy a cheaper one, you're sort of leaving money on the table to do it, and you're still gonna come out behind, but not that far behind.
Yeah.
Like everyone in the market knows the big 3. It's a big thing. If it hasn't been done, nobody's buying the car.
Right.
Or at that price. So if you buy one for $20,000-$25,000, know what you're looking for, but most of them will have had the big 3 done, so you won't have to worry about it. Like the subframe, that's a one-time thing. The Vanos and rod bearings aren't a one-time thing, but unless you own the car for 20 years.
Rod bearings are a one-time thing because they increased the oil clearances
on the new ones,
on the more modern bearings that you'll put in there.
So the rod bearing clearances are larger, but a big thing with the E46 M3 is, and like a lot of the other cars later that had rod bearing issues, they were only an issue if you were dumb. If you let the car get up to operating temp, you never had issues. There were plenty of cars that went to like 200,000 miles on the original rod bearings because the owners always got them up to temp before ragging on them, and it took care of it. It's a motorsport engine; you have to care about those things. And unfortunately, the E46 M3, a lot of people that bought them didn't really know what they were buying, and it was the new hot rod sports car, and they just start them up, rag on them cold, and then they threw rods and blew up engines.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of crazy that like you're like, oh yeah, you have to like know how to do all of the maintenance and like spend the $10,000 to fix the fatal flaws of the design of the car. That's crazy.
I think the biggest advantage of the E46 is it really was the sweet spot, and it feels like a modern car, but it still has a lot of driver's feedback. And I think it's very similar to E39 in that way. Whereas the E36, it feels old, it creaks and rattles. If you do the subframe, it's like these are issues that can be fixed. Unlike some of the cars we'll talk about later, you can fix an E46 M3 and then it will be reliable. And a lot of them have been fixed. So if you're going to buy one, okay, so we did a lot off camera, a lot of discussion. I'm getting cooked here, but I think I may have found a car that
one car out of all the other cars that were available.
But hang on.
This is copium.
It's okay. I mean,
I'll put it in high B tier. I'll put it in high B tier. I'm done having this discussion.
Pissed off all the Porsche purists, which I love.
Yeah.
Even the regular push out the Porsche purists.
Yeah, they're like, you can't put the V8 in there because it didn't come with that.
Well, the regular ones, actually, when it came out, Porsche with the 996, they said, you can't get that much horsepower out of that little displacement. The engine's going to blow up. which they sort of did, but then the 996 actually blew up more than they did. So
Yeah,
it was,
right.
yeah. So
I mean,
it was a moot point.
It cooked them.
Dude, early 2000s German cars just blew up. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that
The
did.
BMW.
It's going in.
Yeah, that's going in. Is this E53?
Yes.
Wait, hang on.
E53
That's the correct.
X5,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, E53 X5. We have a photo of the 4.6 IS.
I don't know much about these cars, guys.
This is going to be mostly us, but probably a lot him because I
Yeah.
think he knows more than I do. But
Yeah.
take it out.
I think these cars are really cool. Like they were BMW's first like SUV.
It was their first
basically.
SUV. Yep.
They kind of knew there was a market emerging for it, and
They were kind of ahead of the curve on that, actually.
yeah, like the big luxury SUVs.
Yeah.
These were surprisingly capable, very capable. They
They
focused it more on like an off-roady kind of car versus like a lot of the newer X5s, which are more like just
Yeah.
typical soccer mom
Right.
SUV.
And the 4.6
pavement
IS was a
Yeah.
540i. Actually, no, it was I think a stroke 540i, 4.6 liters, with a 6-speed manual transmission, which is like, come on, that's cool.
Yeah, you
That's
could get
cool.
manuals in these, which was really cool.
It's pretty rare, but they exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you get like a manual all-wheel drive SUV, like kind of a cool thing for sure.
Yes.
Um,
I think that these have a very big fatal flaw, but I want you to finish.
Yeah, I don't think they're that special though.
They're not that special, and these, I think, was one of the first cars that gave BMW the reputation of really expensive cars to run. These constantly break. They are so expensive to run. The transfer, any of the all-wheel drive components are all really expensive. They break, but even outside of that chassis, like electronics, motor regulators, all the issues that the regular like E39, E46 kind of had, they were more so on these.
And I think that's because they were more like experimental and out of their.
It was their first. It wasn't their wheelhouse. The second gen
Yeah.
X5 was way better, but these they really struggled. The engine was fine. It was just everything else around it. They are maintenance hogs, and I think that detracts from them a lot.
Yeah,
Even if you have a nice one.
and it's like an SUV. Like
Yeah.
the problem with that is that like now, since SUVs are so popular, everyone makes such a good SUV.
Yeah.
There's so many more options.
Even a luxury SUV, you can even get a luxury SUV that's good off road that is kind of reliable. Like there's so many SUVs out there that you
Yeah.
can kind of find one that fits.
The car's obsolete. I honestly would be inclined to put low C or high D.
I think it's a D.
Yeah, like on account of the horrible maintenance, and it just it was cool for what it was, but like it shows that it was the first of something.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, this is another one that may be controversial,
yeah.
but I think we're all kind of in agreement on this. The BMW Z8.
Yeah.
The Z8.
The Z8.
Z8.
Dude.
All right, so
Yep.
positives.
Yep.
Looks really cool.
Looks good.
Pays homage to the 507, which I think
Yep.
is one of the coolest BMWs.
It was in a James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan.
Yep. E39.5 powertrain.
Yeah,
Yep.
good powertrain.
Yep.
Okay, so now that brings us to the problems.
Wait. Do we mention that it looks good?
Yeah,
We did.
looks really good.
Yeah. We
looks good.
just want to make
We
that
didn't
known.
say that twice because
It is so beautiful.
It
It is
looks
so
really
beautiful.
good.
It is a beautiful car. All right. Now, problems, which there are a lot of. One
One.
big one. One big one.
Convertible BMWs just never do as well as coupe versions.
It's true.
I agree with that. Yep.
Very true.
I think
It is
convertible is the way to have this car, but yeah, that's true.
They just don't. And to get that, they're paying homage to the 507, which is also
Yeah.
just a convertible.
Overall-
Imagine they made a coupe version.
Yeah, that would be
one
more valuable.
worth
It would be better.
more,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the second really big issue I have with it is just expensive.
Yeah.
It's
the value's
like
bad.
$200,000.
Yeah.
Not
And-
quite that much.
And it's
They
true.
can.
It's true that they like kind of stay the same. You know, like you'll see people like trade it. Like, oh, it's another Z8 for 200 grand.
Right.
Another Z8 for 200 grand. Another Z8 for 200 grand. They're just always
The
200 grand.
Alpinas are 200 grand.
These went up. Wow.
Yeah,
Like
they're
147. 's the most
really
recent one.
expensive, and I don't think they have a ton to offer other than looking at them in your garage.
The cheapest
Something
one
that
I
we-
found was 141 on Bring a Trailer, and
There's
that is
one-
in like the past like 20.
Yeah. Something that we mentioned as a positive also
Yeah.
is a bit of a negative to me. It just has the E39 M5 powertrain.
Yeah,
If you like that powertrain, you can get it in an S tier chassis.
Yeah, you can get it in the 39.5 and buy like 3 or 4 other of these cars on the list.
Yeah.
Now, it's a good powertrain. It was the right powertrain for that car, but
yeah. But like it's not anything super special. It didn't
Yeah.
get any like revised stuff. It
Right.
didn't make an insane amount more horsepower. Like, it doesn't get a cool induction system. It's a
Right.
S62.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
weigh that much less than the E39 5 either, like only a few hundred
Yeah.
pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So yeah, I mean, like dynamically, it wasn't as good
yeah,
as even the E39 M5.
right.
Again, looks amazing. Pays homage to a really cool car.
Kind of-
a very interesting story.
Kind of like the E31. Most of the experience of this car is just like looking at
looking
it,
at it.
looking at it,
Yeah.
and then like cruising around town. But
It's
that's it.
also a
It's
hyper
looking
limited,
at and then being looked at while you're driving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but it is a V8 manual roadster that
Right.
from the factory that was extremely limited edition.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a positive.
I
Where do I put it?
I'm thinking C tier.
C tier.
It's a C tier car.
Yeah.
It's the only reason that it really retains that value is because it's pretty and it's low numbers.
I'm thinking probably.
And I think that's positive.
Right.
But like the rest of it, like you just think about how many cars you could get for 125 grand.
Yeah.
Buy a Lamborghini, Ferrari 360.
Yeah, like,
almost
yeah.
two Ferrari 360.
You
Yeah,
could get a
you're up-
6-cylinder Z4 that would probably do like most of
Yeah.
the experience of that.
Yeah.
Plus like 6 other cars
Yeah.
Agreed.
in good condition.
So I'm thinking C tier, below the E38, above the 8 Series.
I'd put it below the 8 Series.
Below the 8 Series.
Personally. I think like the 850 CSI is pretty cool.
Yeah, like
Could
if
go
you're
either
spending
way.
that amount of money, I would rather have the 850 CSI.
So I think it's below that.
Below-
yeah,
yeah.
but like just
all right,
that.
We'll go below it. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can.
I think it's cooler than
I
the
mean, would
Z1.
you rather have a Z8 than an 850 CSI?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
That's
like,
fair.
yeah.
But I'm thinking about the general populace. Probably, but this is our tier list.
Yeah, this
Right.
is our
Alright,
tier.
yeah.
It is
These guys
below
are
the 8
here.
Series.
Again, you can reach out to us at spam/customer service
Please,
at tcr.com.
please reach out to spam source customer
Yeah,
service.
literally. Okay, all right. So now we have the first gen X3, which honestly, I'm just gonna say right out the rip. But before we even talk about it,
Yeah.
low key, I'd kind of be willing to just throw it in like mid C tier and call it like it was just a good car. But that's what it was.
Yeah.
With 5-speed manual, it was like they were pretty. Unlike the X5, these actually were kind of reliable, like
Mhm.
almost as much as the E46 for what that.
Because they were very similar.
Yeah, it
running
was
gear
really
and-
similar. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was more of a crossover. It was, I think,
Yeah.
it shared more with the the 3 Series and like the DNA with the 3 Series than
Yeah.
it did
Yeah.
with, like,
It was pulling a lot from the E46.
This
which is a positive.
right,
for
it's
it.
positive. This SUV cemented what it meant for BMW SUV to be an SUV, and like they were all kind of
Yeah.
based on this.
Yeah. Going
Yeah.
forward.
I'd actually maybe on that account maybe almost say B tier.
I'll
It's
say
also
high
really
C.
cheap.
I see.
I'd say high C.
It was like you saying, it sets a formula. They were reasonable cars. You can still get nice ones.
Right.
Like, yeah.
and they're like reliable.
Yeah.
I think
Like,
above the E38.
properly reliable.
Yeah, I think above the E38 on account of reliability and value.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
because
and-
they're
and,
cheap
like-
too, like less than 10 grand for.
And
any
these
of
are the
them.
ones with the split ticket, or is that the X5?
That's the X5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't have that cool factor.
Yeah, it
but-
doesn't have that, but
Yeah.
like it's just a real solid car.
Okay, now a car that I love, and
Okay.
I think everyone loves the car on
Yeah.
paper. The
On paper,
E60 BMW M5.
Yeah.
Everybody loves
This
it.
is another good
on
one.
paper.
I want to lead this one off because
Okay, you go first.
I
Do it.
really love this car.
Glaze it.
To me, it's okay. We'll do pros. V10 with 4 doors, nice interior.
Absolutely.
It has like a lot of cool things interior too, like heated everything,
Absolutely.
adjustable bolstering.
Oh, yep.
People say they're ugly. When they came out, it was kind of polarizing. I actually never really hated the way they looked. I think the M5 specifically looks a lot better than the non-M E60s. Like if you take a 525i for the M5, I think the M5 like
Oh yeah, it looks
the
better.
bigger wheels and the bumpers completely transform that car.
For sure.
Yep.
So I think that's positives. The SMG transmission, it was the first SMG that had an extra gear. It was a 7-speed. And I think that transmission, it's rough.
Bad.
Around
It's
town, it's
bad.
kind of bad, but when you get it on back roads and you really let the car sing, this car is sublime. It drives so nice. The chassis is amazing. And the engine is great. I will say that the engine is hard carrying this car. Like,
It's
the
hard
E39
carrying.
chassis as a whole,
Hard.
I like more.
Yep.
This
Hard.
handles better than the E39, but as a whole, I prefer the E39.
Yeah.
And the engine makes this car. It also sort of becomes its biggest pitfall.
Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And,
Yeah.
and last note, they do come with a 6-speed manual, but they are expensive. Any
And
6-speed
they're
car,
pretty rare.
they're pretty rare.
Yep.
And they only came in the United States, actually.
Yep.
The floor for a 6-speed car, I want to say realistically, is like 50 grand.
I think
Maybe
you're right
you could
about that.
find
I
one
think,
in
yeah,
like
I
for
think
like
they're
4 or
pretty
5.
expensive.
Yeah.
But 50 grand, like reasonably, that's what you're going to pay for a
yeah,
6-speed car.
I'm pretty sure you're spot on with that.
especially one that's in like good shape, because
Yeah.
there's also this car wins the award for like most clapped of all M5s.
You can buy these for like $5,000
Yeah.
that need an engine.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is a testament to what Sonny was just saying about the engine carrying this car. A lot of examples, their only value is the value of the engine. You can go on eBay and you can buy a $10,000 S85, or you can buy a clapped E60 M5 for $10,000 with
then,
the
like,
same mileage engine in it.
Yeah, like do the ride bearings, do the Vanos, and swap it into whatever weird car you're gonna make insane.
And you do it. It carries it so hard.
Right.
I don't think it's true anymore because the whole EV market and Tesla, but for a while, this was the most expensive car to maintain ever. Any brand, any make, and I've read that article in like 2012.
Yeah.
I think these are huge detractors. There's just a level of anxiety that you have driving it.
The time.
With like, oh my God, is my insane self-leveling suspension going to just explode and it's going to cost me $10,000?
Yeah.
Or is my rod bearing going to spin and I'm going to have to buy another?
Or is my
engine
SMG
for
pump
$10,000?
going to go out?
Because that's the thing. Even if you do the rod bearings, the engine isn't the only problem. It's the whole car.
The whole car.
They bill oil. They bill a power steering fluid. Like they just leak everything.
The mirrors break and go like full inverted and point up towards the sky.
Yeah. It's just an expensive car to run. And like you are actually buying a Lamborghini. You're buying you're buying a Lamborghini for like $20,000.
For $20,000, but
yeah,
you're going to be maintaining the crap out of it like it's a Lamborghini.
Yeah, you're maintaining a Lamborghini. Yeah, exactly. I would love so much to put it in B tier.
Yeah.
Even with the maintenance, but the maintenance is just too bad. It just kills the whole car.
So terrible.
I'm kind of thinking somewhere in C tier. I think maybe close to the Z8. Because like it is also a driving experience that doesn't. It is a one-off driving experience.
It's true.
And
sort of, but also like
I think
it costs as much as a Lambo.
You have the polar opposites. You have like one of the best driving experiences ever, and also one of the worst maintenance expensive cars ever.
Yeah.
So like I want to put it in C because I can't put it in D because it is more important than that and it's way cooler than that. But I also can't put it like any higher than C because it's just too much to run.
It was BMW trying to be like, hey, Formula One tech.
Yeah, it was cool, like they went all in on this car, and I kind of respect them for it.
Yeah, like this was I would say this is BMW's crackhead era.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, I'd be putting it in D all day long. But the V10 is so cool.
Yeah.
That I could settle for bottom of the C barrel.
I'm also bottom of the C barrel for exactly the same reasons. And the fact that like the SMG around town kicks you in the butt all the time. Like the only way I was ever to get it to somewhere where I felt like it was doing stuff was to crank it all the way up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate the SMG as much as they do, but it's not. It's a clunky transmission.
It's really clunky.
Yeah, if this was even like somewhat reliable, it'd probably be S tier.
Yeah.
Like
that's absolutely true.
It's not even close. It's just so bad.
I think if this car in a manual or even a wagon, they did have wagon versions.
Oh yeah, in Europe.
Yeah, they didn't have manual wagons though.
Yeah, manual wagon.
No, but imagine manual wagon, reliable E60 M5 that didn't break. That's an S tier.
That is an S tier
all day.
Yeah, that thing's crazy.
Yeah. But that doesn't exist.
But
yeah. So okay, we're gonna put it bottom C.
tier.
Bottom C. Yeah.
Unfortunately, C tier. Now we have the E92 M3.
I love this car.
Yeah,
I'll be the first to say it.
Yeah.
I love this car. I feel like if you were to own the E30 M3 and an E90 M3 or E92 M3,
E92,
those two different cars covers like so many different versions of the BMW driving experience.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This thing had a really cool V8 that is a lot like the S85, but as a V8.
Is. Yeah, it's 2 cylinders cut off.
Yep. It made really good power.
Incredibly so, yeah.
Engine.
Right.
And this also had the DCT, which finally, it's a pretty good automatic.
They're almost as expensive as the E60. They're not quite as bad. They don't have the same chassis problems, but the engines, like their coil service, is like $1,500 in parts.
Yeah,
that is brutal.
Very true.
Yes.
That is like so much more than any of that's more expensive than the M3s came before or after it.
Mm-hmm.
They have the same rod bearing problems.
I think with the E90, did really well was distill the character that we saw in the E46 M3
Yeah.
into a modern car, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's got a crazy engine, but this is a luxury car.
Right. It is a luxury car. Yeah.
It's
and that's where
also
it
the
comes
last
modern.
E chassis.
It is the last
Yes.
E chassis.
Last
In
E
terms
chassis.
of cars that are, to me, extremely annoying to work on, this still is pretty hard, but like the next level of car becomes even worse.
Almost, yeah.
Where it's like you're talking supercomputer more than a car.
Yeah.
This thing, to me, it's just like the last. It's the most modern, like true old school BMW that exists.
We talked a little bit earlier about slow car fast. This is like you're driving a fast car slow, because it has so much more to give you around town that you just can never access without egregiously breaking the
and that's
law.
my biggest problem with the car over the E46 M3 especially, and that's why I think the E46 M3 is the Goldilocks M3 and this isn't.
Yeah.
I think I will give you that the E46 M3 is better than this car.
Dynamically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally would rather own one of these than an E46.
Interesting.
And I think the reason is I have a little bit of like the first BMW I was like a huge fan of was the E92 or E90 335.
Right.
And I just loved the way that car was like luxury. It was quiet.
We almost could have put the 335 as its own car on here, honestly, because of how different it is from all the other ones.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool.
They had a lot of variety in the E9X generation of cars.
But I think
similarly to the E46.
The styling on the E92 M3 reminds me a lot of the E36 M3 actually.
Interesting.
And like it's very coupy. It's not as like muscly looking as the like E46.
I
don't know.
I think it's really elegant.
Well, actually, okay.
It's pretty muscular.
I think what you're describing, E46 has very defined flared fenders.
Yes.
Yeah.
This doesn't, but this is a physically larger car. This car kind of stands on its own.
Yeah, and I think that's really special about it.
Yeah.
I think that's really special about it. I really, the styling, also, if you compare this to like the E60, looks far better. I mean...
Yeah, I would say it's a better looking car.
Yeah, by a long shot.
Okay, what are you guys thinking?
For me, it's below E46. I think it sneaks in above the E36. And I would give this more, but the reliability and the cost of ownership is still really high.
Is an issue, yeah.
And because of that, I'd probably sneak it. I'd sneak it between E46 and E36, but I would also totally understand why it might be lower on the B spectrum just because of the cost.
I think, honestly, I'd be inclined to stick it below the E36 and above the E34, like mid-B, basically. And cost of ownership, and also, I think the E36 and E46 are more universally loved and were a little more important for BMW. This is their crack at it. It was the V8 car, but it didn't, like, it was a one-off. It was its own thing. And, like, that's cool, but the E36 and E46 were sort of like a step forward, and this is, okay, how the cars are going. And this, it's kind of its own thing. I don't know.
A little bit of a step aside.
Yeah, kind of a step aside, but like forward, like diagonal almost.
Yeah.
But I think mid-B sounds...
I'm in Sonny's camp with below the E36.
Below the E36?
Yeah. And my last comment on that is these cost the same as the E39 and 5. And I think for that money, the E39 5 is... It's not going to be quite as sporty,
right?
But it still has a similar Grand Tour experience, and like you're
getting so much car.
You're getting so much. The E39 and 5 is like kind of this, but like more so. It's more beautiful, like so. I think that also detracts from it a little bit.
And I think like that V8 also just pairs so well with that chassis.
The E39.
Yeah. It's like even this car, you pay extra attention to the engine. Because it's asking for that attention.
Like the E60, the engine is the centerpiece of the car.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the E39, it just like it's just so natural.
Everything is
just so
makes
natural.
sense.
Your senses are drawn everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our tier list. We're gonna do our final rundown of the tier list.
Yeah.
See if we're okay with that. I'm just gonna list them all out, and then
bring it.
Yeah. Okay. So S tier, we have on top BMW M1. Then we have the E39 M5. We move on to A tier. We have the E30 M3 and a 2002. Then, or I say M3, E30, whatever.
Yeah, you got it.
E30 2002.
E30 2002. So B tier, we have E46, then E36, then E92, E34, E28, Z3.
Yep.
Then C tier, we have the X3, E38 7 Series, E31 8 Series, BMW Z8, E32, Z1, E60 M5. Then in D tier, we have the X5 first gen, and in F, we have the E46 Ti.
Yeah.
Which I'm actually pretty good with that tier list.
I think we got it.
I think
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
That's
I think
about
it-
right. You know,
And I
Sonny's
think
got one big gripe,
because
but
of
that's
this-
okay.
I can live with.
We
what-
have
yeah.
to sell. We have to get Sunny in a 2002.
Yeah,
Just
true.
It's different.
It's different. It's not, but you can understand where BMW driving dynamics come from.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna take the word on that. I've never heard anyone hop out of one and be like, I hated that. So
Yeah. I mean, like,
that's never happened once.
Exactly.
there's definitely been people that hopped in and they're like, "This is old,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
They all enjoy it.
Yeah. So, okay, that is it. That's our BMW tier list. Comment down below your thoughts. What did we get wrong?
Wrong.
What did we put your favorite car in F tier? I hope not.
I hope not. Please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't like that car.
Yeah, don't like that. If you have any suggestions for changes we could have made, feel free to comment down below and explain why. We're all curious. Or, shoot me a message on Instagram or shoot them a message off their website if you have any quarrels with this. TC European, awesome BMW shop in Colorado. If you have a early 2000s and pre-2000 BMW, they're the guys who work on it, especially 2002s. You guys have found a really
We
good
have a
niche in
lot of 2002s.
I love
2002s.
2002.
Check them out. Website will also be in the description down below. If you need parts for your old BMWs, they probably have it. Like, they have a lot of parts that don't exist anywhere else, but they have it because they're awesome and they know the cars and what people want. So, yeah. Yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Feels like I've been doing